Hey guys, this rack is from the buck I got in Montana just a few weeks ago on a spot and stalk muzzleloader hunt put together by CBA and Nikon. And I got the whole thing on video too. You can see that video linked in the video description below. In this video, I'm going to show you how to take a rack like this and using no special tools, no special skills, no taxidermy whatsoever, and for under about $5 of materials, create a mount that looks like you paid hundreds for. And that's what's coming up next on Twang and Bang. First thing I need to do is get some suitable rock. And after a lot of searching, I found a place that lets me pick out pieces by the pound so I don't have to buy a whole ton at a time. You got lots of cool stuff here. You just got to make sure it's not too thick because all that is weight. It doesn't really add to the look that much. And got some really cool shapes over here. I'm not sure I want that color, but boy, they got so many options. This might take a little bit of time. This one looks pretty cool. Kind of gives it a deer skull look to it. Not too fat, and both sides are kind of neat. All right, we're gonna take this one. I like the look of that one too, kind of sideways like that. Yeah, both sides look good. All right, gonna take this one too. Here's another piece that has a really good plaque look to it when held horizontal. All right, I like it. I just found a really nice pile, and I think here's another one that I think looks really good, like a deer skull kind of look to it. Okay, I think we're done for real. And here are the 4 stones. I'm back at home ready to mount. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to see which one I want to use. And this is about the way I would put the skull cap on each of these. Just like that, and this is my favorite. I've got a whitetail buck mounted on a rock similar to this, and I really like the way that looks, kind of like an actual skull. So we're gonna go with this rock, and assuming it doesn't break in the process of making this mount, I think this is gonna have a really good luck when we're done. For this next part, we wanna get all of the meat and this fascia off the bone. And we might not necessarily strip all of it off. Like, see, some of it's already dry. This has been sitting out drying for about 2 weeks. But one quick note, before you go and do all the stuff that I'm doing right now, if you're interested in getting an official rule book score on your rack, make sure you find out what the rules are as far as drying time goes. I'm not worried about getting a rule book score on this rack. So I'm just going to go ahead with this next step, which involves cooking all this off. A lot of people will boil this. I don't like to boil because you run the risk of, when boiling this part, boiling up onto the antlers, which will bleach them. And I love the look, and I love leaving the little pieces of bark that you'll find in the antlers from a buck rubbing on trees and bushes and stuff. I'm going to use a butane torch to cook this stuff off. It also gives it a really nice burnished look. This is just a standard butane torch. Let that warm up. And now we're just going to quickly hit the outside. Let's see if I could get that to focus. You can see it kind of cooking as I'm doing it. Ooh, and popping too. And splitting. That's all good because we are going to be peeling this all off. And I'm being careful to stay under the pedicle because I don't want to cook off any of that bark. And I'm just kind of hitting this a little bit with the heat because what I don't want to do is overcook the skull itself. because I don't want it to crack and break. I'm going to get the inside of the brain case also. I already pulled a lot of the fascia out, but there's still going to be a little bit in there. You want to just dry this all out. I might not even peel any of this stuff out now, but this is a process of accelerating the drying of the skull. And there we go. You can see the rack itself was untouched by flame or boiling water or anything like that. I still have pieces of bark in there, but I've got all of the fascia that's on the skull and some of the meat left over cooked up pretty well. And now I'm going to take a blade and scrape a lot of that off. It doesn't have to be perfect. None of this has to be perfect. That's one of the beautiful things about this method of mounting. You can get things most of the way and it still is going to look awesome. Now I'm just going to scrape this off gently, peel stuff off as it comes loose. And again, this does not have to be perfect. Just want to get the chunks off, want to get it a little bit evened out. And you want to make sure you're not gouging into the skull itself. That's why using a sharp knife is a good idea. This stuff will peel off. It'll feel like paper after being dried out. There you go. It doesn't have to be perfect. It actually looks cooler without it being completely perfect. Everything that's left behind is all dried out. It's going to mummify over time. You don't have to worry about hitting it with any preservative. It's not going to rot or anything like that, and it's not going to smell. You're going to have this up on a wall anyway, so it's not like your nose is going to be near it. But that's all you need to do before we start drilling holes. Here's where it gets really scary, because we're going to drill holes into the skull cap. We're going to put them even with the bottom edges of the antlers, right up into the pedicle area, and we're going to put them halfway between the crest on the skull and the pedicle. So right about there and right about there. I'm using a hammer drill because that's what I'm going to need for the next step, but this is fine for my purposes for this. No going back now. There we go. Just like that. We're down on the ground for this next part just because it's going to be easier for me to lean into it. I've got a hammer drill. I'm switching it over to the hammer drill. And I've got a masonry bit. You can do this with a regular drill and a masonry bit. It's just going to take you a lot longer. This is the most time-consuming part of this whole project. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a general idea for where the two holes in the stone need to go. And again, nothing needs to be perfect here. All the angles are odd angles anyway, so it's really easy to hide any major flaws, and minor flaws look like character anyway. So I'm seeing this area and this area are kind of in line. And all right, so I'm going to put one hole right here. And now one more over. Awesome. I got some breakthrough on the back side, but I did not damage this. And this is a little off, but it doesn't matter because this is going to be covered and you get a little bit of play in here with the rack to deal with. Okay, final step. Now we're gonna wire this together with some heavy duty braided mirror cord I got, the 75-pound version. And let me pull this out. And we're just gonna take a much bigger section than we're gonna need. That should do. And we're gonna start by running it. Let me just brush some of that off there. Running it through the front of the rack. You'll make sure you get the twist out as you do this. Okay, and I've flattened that out. Make it nice and tight. And now we're going to just run it through the holes in the rock. There. And now I'm going to line it up the way I want to. Pull it tight and then start twisting in the back. Just like this. And try to keep that nice and tight. Okay, that's good. Now we're going to make the loop to hang it. So we don't want to see the loop. So we just go up to about where we think the top is going to be and twist it over just like that. And back down. And then I'm going to cut this a little shorter to begin with. And now you just take that end and twist a couple times like that. Do the same on this side. Twist and twist. And mechanically, we're done. That's what you're going to hang the hook on. Just like that. Doesn't need to be pretty again. It's right behind it. And this is what it's going to look like in the front. Although we're going to be able to twist this around and realign it. There's play in there. Once you set it, it's not going to move, but I've got some play still in there, so you still need to be gentle with it. Last step, I'm taking this leather craft lace and I'm going to cover the wire. That's all we're doing. This is purely for aesthetics, and it makes it look like you used leather to do this instead of wire. And we don't need it to go through the rock because this will sit in here on its own. We just want this to be flat over the wire. Might need to twist this, and there you go. You see this extra stuff? I'm just going to cut it, tuck it behind the skull, and we're good. Friction's going to do the rest for us. Look at that. Get back a little farther. Isn't that awesome? Again, it's loose between the skull plate and the rock, but that's okay. We're going to use that to our advantage. Next thing we need to do is hang it in place. Remember, you're hanging a big piece of rock and antlers, so use a heavy duty hook. I've got this actually screwed into the wood paneling. And now I'm just going to loop the picture wire, loop right into the hook, make sure it's solid in there. And now we're going to use the play. The rack has a lot of play on here to our advantage. First, I'm going to kind of set the plaque the way I want it. And now I'm going to set the rack. Actually, that looks pretty good. And now we're just going to dress that little piece of leather across the wire so you can't see it anymore. And that's it. That was 30 minutes of time, including moving the cameras around, and less than $5 in materials, maybe $20 if you had to buy everything from scratch, but this cost $1 for the rock. I mean, really, it's your time in getting the materials together. And I think this looks fantastic. I'll show you the others that I got in this room too. So there's my mule deer buck I got with the muzzleloader. Over here, this is a rack off of the oldest deer I ever shot. I got this guy with my Matthews switchback maybe 8 years ago, not far from my house. And this guy was so old, I don't think this was the biggest rack he ever grew. And then over here is the rack similar to that one, the mount similar to that one. And this beam here snapped off when he did a face plant into a bunch of rocks after I shot him with my Scorpid crossbow. And I never could find that little bit, and I didn't bother building it up. You can make a little fake point, but that's when that broke off. It broke off after I actually shot him. And looks nice. Look at all three. Fantastic. I will tell you, my wife is going to kill me because she told me I'm not allowed to hang that rack there, but I did it anyway. To see if I survive this, be sure to follow me on Facebook and Instagram. You can see the links right here. And be sure to click right here to subscribe so you can catch my next videos on bows, guns, and other cool stuff like how to mount your own rack. I really appreciate you watching Twang and Bang, and hope to see you next time.